After playing the Persona series for over 5 years now, I've completed nearly every single game in the entire franchise, including the older games Persona 1 and Persona 2. So now I feel comfortable making a video going through ranking them based on how much I enjoyed them. To be painfully clear, this is not meant to be objective in any way, merely just a fanboy's perspective on the series and how I feel about it. I say this because I know a lot of people are going to disagree with my takes, and that's fine, because if we all had the same exact opinions, we'd be going against the very ideals of the entire franchise. I like every game in the series, honestly, and I think Persona is one of the most consistent pieces of media I've ever seen in terms of both quality and quantity. So if something is low on the list, it doesn't mean I hate it, I just like other things more than them. Nothing much more to say than that, so we can head into the list. And if you end up enjoying it, consider dropping a like and a subscribe. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subs, and it would help my channel a lot. Okay, let's go into the first game on the list. I haven't played the Q games or the P1 or P3 mobile games, so these are the only ones I cannot comment on. I will play them eventually, but there's so many good games I gotta get to, I'm sure y'all understand. So the first actual games we can talk about are the Persona dancing games. And yes, Persona 5 Dancing is in D tier by itself for one sole reason. I hate the remixes they made for that game, and for a rhythm game, that's a killing blow. That said, I still enjoyed it. That might sound dumb as hell considering what I just said, so let me explain. The Persona dancing games are pure fan service. P3 and P5 dancing have these social events, I forget what they're called, that you can go through for all the party members, and they were just a blast. You get to learn stuff like Haru being terrible with computers and just get to see the characters interact more in goofy ways. Dressing the cast up in goofy outfits or things you found cute or cool or just whatever was a very enjoyable time. Persona 4 Dancing, on the other hand, instead of having pure fan service and the social events, had a fully fleshed out story mode that is canon to the timeline. Unlike P3 and 5 where they forget the events of the game, everything in P4 Dancing is remembered by the cast, and the story mode is actually pretty good. It's a light visual novel with dancing in between, but they somehow made it work really well. Kaname and her group were solid characters, and the game took a darker path than I thought it would. Persona 4 Dancing also had my favorite remixes of the dancing games, so my order of remixes would go something like this. Persona 3 Dancing had pretty decent remixes, but not on the same level as 4's did. So the dancing games got good fan service, mostly good music, and in P4's case, a solid story. So overall, I truly enjoyed my time with them, and I still go back and play them to this day. I just like other games more than them, as I said at the start. After the dancing games is the game that started it all, that being Persona 1, specifically the PSP version. I actually loved this game in a lot of ways, and if it wasn't for the somewhat archaic game design, I'd be down to put it even higher on the list. In my initial impressions video I made for Persona 1, I said this game and Persona 4 are the quote-unquote most Persona the games have ever been. What I mean by that is what themes they touch on and how they do it. I mean, Persona 1 had Be Your True Mind right on the box art on the Japanese PS1 version. Pretty clear what they're going for there, and this kind of theme is when I think Persona is at its best. That said, this game was far from perfect. For as much as I enjoyed the story, especially the Seebeck route and Maki, other characters got shafted on development pretty badly. Now, this isn't to say the other characters are bad, but they just felt, I don't know, kind of linear, I guess. It didn't feel like anyone stuck out to me in terms of writing outside of Maki. And since the older Persona games don't have anything like social links to make up for it, it's extremely noticeable. I still enjoyed the cast despite this, however. Nanjo and Mark have a really good dynamic that evolves throughout the game as they become more mature. Maki is by far one of the best characters in Persona, considering the entire Seebeck route is about her, and the protagonist? Well, let's just say the manga made him way better because in the game he's just kind of there. For your fifth party member, you had a choice between Reiji, Elly, and Brown, all of which make an appearance in Persona 2. The real reason Persona 1 is this low is the gameplay. I don't think Persona 1 has the worst gameplay in the franchise, because trust me, we'll get to that in due time. But god damn if it isn't archaic. While this game does have very interesting ideas and was ahead of its time, I'll admit that much, in some ways it's just tough to go back to. The random encounter rate for how much it's memed on is genuinely an issue for how high it is, and it kills my enjoyment of an otherwise decent combat system. You've got formations, the grid system, and everyone can use a persona in this game, making your party composition feel a lot more flexible. You've also got shitter mechanics like negotiation in this game too, so it feels like every step forward has a step back alongside it. It's got good dungeons and gameplay, but bad encounter rates, stuff like that. The gameplay is a beaten horse though, so I don't want to go much more into it. But something I can't fathom about this game is how they try to convince you in Persona 2 that both the Snow Queen route and Seebeck route happened in this game. I won't go into spoiler territory, but it's quite literally impossible for this to be true. They follow completely different storylines and lock each other out from existing. Thankfully the manga fixed this, but like seriously? What were they thinking? Persona 1 is a great game that laid a perfect foundation for what the series could grow from, and for that I have a massive deal of respect for it. I enjoyed playing it despite its flaws, and hopefully one day Atlus will make it accessible for more people to experience, whether it be a remake, remaster, or just a port. Just anything is better than nothing at this point. This is where I'm 100% sure the disagreements are going to start, because at the top of C tier is Persona 3 FES. Criminal, I know, but just hear me out. While Persona 3 and by proxy Persona 3 FES did basically save the entirety of Atlus from going under and gave us a timeless story with good themes, characters, and more, I just found myself seriously not having fun playing this game whatsoever. I think I genuinely go as far to say I liked Persona 1's gameplay more than Persona 3 FES. If the story wasn't as good as it is, I would have dropped this shit like an ugly baby. For as much as people like to praise the tactics system for being this unique thing that incentivizes a different style of play, for me personally, man, I fucking hate that shit. It felt so fucking annoying constantly trying to go through the tactics menu when I would really just rather perform the actions myself. Now, I've read the developer interview about how they designed it this way to make the party members feel more individualistic from you, the player, and feel more like real people. But this failed for me so hard. It didn't feel like the party members were real people at all. It felt like they were lifeless drones. Somehow not controlling them makes me feel less connected to them, and I don't think this is that weird to say. Then you've got the lack of quality of life things like skill inheritance, which is just the killing blow for me. I don't know who in their right mind can possibly think the lack of skill inheritance is a good thing. But if you somehow do, then you do you, man. For me, it made fusing feel like a chore and I hated it. A lot. I don't think Persona 3 FES's combat is objectively bad or anything, because that's just fucking really ignorant to say. But it's by far some of the least fun I've ever had playing a video game. And that's why I didn't find exploring Tartarus very fun either. If I liked the combat, I wouldn't have minded it as much, but 250 plus floors of a combat experience I'm not a fan of was mind-numbing to say the least. Persona 3 FES does too many things right to be totally negative though, even I can admit that. Persona 3 FES has by far and away the best written cast of characters in the main party in my humble opinion. I wouldn't have been able to make well over 6 hours of analysis content for them if this wasn't the case. They all perfectly contribute to the game's themes, story, just everything. The only complaint I have is that the male party members lack social links or the equivalent, but other than that, y'all, it's fucking perfect. The story is mostly great, but some villains and story moments were very underdeveloped. Once you get near the end though, it's just fire. This was also the game that introduced the social link and calendar system, which truly distinguished Persona from its peers. Persona 3, truth be told, has my least favorite social links out of the modern 3 games, but it also has some of my favorites too. I might hate Kenji and everything he stands for, but you show me Akinari and I'm like, oh yeah, that's why this game is so damn good. At the end of the day, I might not enjoy playing this game much. In fact, I don't particularly want to play this game ever again, but this is not a bad game. The story is amazing, the characters are amazing, the music is timeless, it has a good atmosphere, and while I hate the combat, it is not the worst thing ever by any means. I sincerely respect this game for making such bold changes to the formula of Persona, but I can't lie and pretend I like it. I just can't, it's not my style. Feel free to disagree though, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I feel like this is about to piss so many people off, but again, I'ma just be honest. I like Persona 3 Portable more than Persona 3 FES. This is going to be a short discussion since Portable is very similar to FES, but Portable just straight up fixed a lot of the grievances I had with FES in terms of gameplay. It added controllable party members, it added stuff like skill cards, it added skill inheritance. Quick correction, this game did not have skill inheritance, I just checked, I fucking lied, my fault. And no joke, those three things alone made me enjoy the game so much more. The main thing people don't like about Portable is the fact there's no animated cutscenes and you explore Iwatodai City through a more visual novel style. And to be honest, I don't mind this at all. I think the visual novel style has a certain charm to it, and considering the fact I play Persona mostly for the character interactions anyway, I don't mind just kicking back and reading a bunch. The only time I think the lack of animated cutscenes is truly a downgrade is the moment the protags summon Orpheus for the first time. But other than that, it's kind of just whatever for me. Even a certain date in October, which a lot of people will point to Portable for being a downgrade, didn't bother me. And I'm not saying these aren't valid complaints, by the way, so I hope it ain't coming off that way. But for me, I just don't mind these differences. I'm more than fine with taking the more enjoyable gameplay over these cutscenes and stuff like that. Then, of course, Portable added the female protagonist route, which I enjoyed way more than I anticipated on my first playthrough. Even as a guy, I was like, damn, this is just a really interesting change of pace. It's kind of crazy how something as seemingly small at first glance can be such a game changer. But then you think about it and it's like, yeah, it really isn't that crazy. Guys and girls just have different struggles. That being said, it's principally the exact same game and story. You're just a girl now, which is kind of cool. Persona 3 Portable catches a lot of flack from people, and I understand why, but I enjoyed my time with it a lot, and I think it deserves a little respect. Unless you're shitting on the quality of the new ports, cause god damn Alice, y'all should be ashamed you shipped it out the door like that. AI upscale textures, bad audio quality. Like, I get Reload was on the way, but this is the fucking, this is like I can't even say what I want to say. This is like just fan AI upscaling tier. It looks like shit I played in Persona 1 and 2 with the upscaling. Like, seriously? The game is still good though. A game that is not good, at least in the gameplay department, is Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Thankfully, it excels in everything else so well that it puts it right in the middle of the pack at the top of B tier. If this game's gameplay was better, it could easily be in the top 5. But if I thought Persona 3 FES's combat was bad, then this game's combat is enough to make a grown man cry. It genuinely felt like in nearly every single way gameplay-wise, it was a downgrade from Persona 1. The random encounter rate is still obnoxious, the battles take even longer than Persona 1, at least it feels that way, the negotiation and fusion system got worse, the game is so easy you can beat it with the starter personas, and at that point, I don't even know if I need to say anymore. It's just bad. But like I said, everything else is great. If you want to hear more about how I felt about the gameplay loop, peep my Innocent Sin video at the top right of the screen now. The game's cast and story absolutely blew my mind. Every time I felt like I knew where the story was headed, it just wasn't the case at all. And before I knew it, I was fighting Nazis in a Persona game. Oh, we're fucked. We're fucked, bro. We're actually getting bombed. What the fuck? We're getting bombed by the fucking Nazis. And the craziest part is that it works. In fact, it works so well, I'd say this game has my second favorite Persona story of all time. And a large part of that is how good the cast are. Lisa, Eichiki, Tatsuya, everyone are distinct from one another. And unlike Persona 1, the characters were very well fleshed out. I just loved everything this game was going for, and that's why despite hating the gameplay with every fiber of my being, I have to put it in at least B tier. It's a simple game with a very not simple story that still blows my mind thinking about it even several weeks after completing it. Great game. Please remaster or remake it, Atlas, just something. With the very short B tier wrapped up, we head into A tier, and this is yet another one I'm sure people will be very shocked to see this high on my list. Persona 5 The Phantom X for being a Chinese gacha game has been very impressive thus far. I tend to hate gacha games with every fiber of my being, and I feel like the gaming industry has gotten worse because of them. I mean, look at these fucking Players' Choice Awards at the Game Awards, like, are y'all fucking serious? That being said, I think the story of this game is actually really good. I hate the gacha system and all that, but just from a pure narrative standpoint, I found myself enjoying this almost as much as Persona 5 itself. If it weren't a gacha game, I would have no joke put it in S tier, but alas, that was not meant to be. I wasn't expecting much of this game, but I started playing it and I was like, okay, this looks pretty good for a mobile game. It's got interesting characters, it has interesting lore, and it takes place in an alternate universe so it doesn't fuck the timeline up, which is pretty appreciated to be honest. Without spoiling the game since most people haven't played it, it's kinda like the inverse of Persona 5's themes. Instead of stealing the desires of people, you're basically giving back their desires, which is very interesting. As I make this, we've gotten about 3 palaces with more to come, but all 3 of them have been really solid, one of which having one of the coolest ideas for a Persona 5 palace I've seen yet. The sad part about this being a gacha game is that it kinda has the best turn-based combat in the series if I'm being honest. Every character has their own gimmicks and use cases, and it feels more intricate than the mainline games where all that really matters is damage. Some fights are endurance based, so you need tanks, some fights you do want to blitz through, so you need a bunch of DPS characters, and then you've got a bunch of niches even in these things. Yusuke is a tank that can do crazy damage as well with counters, but Yuki is a support tank that applies shields to allies. It's really fun, but the fact it's a gacha is gonna limit your enjoyment unless you cough up that dough, which I highly advise against doing. Be free to play, and if the game dies, then so be it. Don't waste your money on gacha games even if you like them. That's just my personal advice though, do whatever you want. We all make bad financial decisions once in a while. I mean, look at my fucking whole shelf, seriously dude. Anyway, before I blow a gasket or something like an old man, this game has a good story, good music, good characters, good gameplay, if you can look past the dog shit gacha aspect of it. I think once this game gets localized and more people play it, more people are gonna warm up to it. I don't blame people for immediately writing it off, but I do think it's better than most people think. Yet another Persona 5 game comes after P5X. What a shocker, right? They only made 500 million spin-offs, and this one is Persona 5 Strikers. This one tends to be most people's favorite Persona spin-off, and I can totally understand why. I mean, it's got really good music, a good story, and it gives characters like Haru more time in the spotlight, which I'm always down for. And while I agree with all of these points, this game just wasn't too fun to play for me. I'm not a fan of the Dynasty Warrior style gameplay loop whatsoever, and this is the most linear Persona game I've ever played in the gameplay department, of course. There is zero depth to the gameplay mechanics. It is button mash the game, which is just not engaging for me at all. I'm not asking Atlus to make a Devil May Cry tier gameplay loop with insane depth or anything, but hey, I wouldn't complain, I'm just saying. Regarding the story though, because that's where most people want to talk about it. While I did enjoy the story a lot, like Zenkishi and Sophia are amazing characters. Once I got to the ending of the game, I was just thinking to myself, haven't we already done this song and dance? It felt like the ending was just rehashing a lot of what Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal was doing. So the build up to the end is good, but for me the story just kind of fell off. It's not bad by any means, I still enjoyed it, but I think it's the hardest fall off story-wise for me in the franchise. Something I enjoyed a lot despite not liking the combat was exploring the jails, which if you haven't played Strikers are more or less smaller palaces. I'd say this game is the most fun I had dungeon crawling in Persona, which is a pretty funny thing to say since I don't like the combat. What this game does best is giving you more meaningful time with the Phantom Thieves, and that's why it is so high on the list. Traveling around Japan with a team, seeing a bunch of different areas, getting shit done outside of one set location, it's just a really good change of pace. Which is why, like I said, this game is pretty high on the list. I thought about putting it in S, but again, there's just some things holding me back from putting it that high. A fantastic game all around, I don't have anything completely bad to say about it, but yeah, the gameplay isn't for me and the story fell off. That's why it's this low. Right after what is most people's favorite spinoff comes what is most people's least favorite spinoff. But not for me, baby. I'm Persona 4 Arena Ultimax's strongest soldier. Truth be told, this would actually be a top 5 game for me if the story wasn't so mid. Like, I think the Ultimax story in particular, not the vanilla arena, is the weakest story in the Persona franchise. That being said, the fighting game component is so good that I don't really care. I'm still putting it in A tier. It's basically the inverse of Innocent Sin for me. The game is such an easy fighting game to get into mechanically, and it's perfect for newcomers to the genre. And if you do decide to take it a little more seriously, there's so much to learn that you'll find new things even years down the road. I've been playing Ultimax for over 3 years, going on 4 now, and there's still a fuck ton I don't know about this game, which is awesome. It is easily the most intricate and deep gameplay the Persona series just has to offer, period, as to be expected of a fighting game take on the franchise. I won't subject you to the ramblings of a fighting game nerd, but this game has easily given me some of my favorite moments playing a fighting game. Playing Narukami and doing the most broken pressure and combos ever is an experience I wish everyone could have, but I understand not everyone is down to learn a fighting game to that degree. But if you are, then you'd probably agree with me in saying the arena games are top tier spin-offs free. All I gotta say. The final game of A tier is Persona 5 Tactica, which is by far the most underrated Persona game in the series besides the arena games. This being announced alongside Persona 3 Reload was such a dumbass idea because no matter how good this game ended up being, it was gonna be overshadowed and forgotten. And guess what happened? It got overshadowed and forgotten. Who would have fucking thought? Obviously part of it is the fact that people just kinda got tired of Persona 5 spin-offs as well, but the Reload thing didn't help. It's a shame because this game has one of my favorite stories to come from a spin-off. I'd say it's my second favorite spin-off story. And, well, just second favorite spin-off in general, actually. It's just so damn charming. It's got a beautiful art style and aesthetic, the gameplay is solid, and it takes some ideas from Persona 1 and gives a modern take on it. This game ended up being more dark than I expected, and it fits Persona 5's themes amazingly. The only complaint I truly have with this game is that the final dungeon, or whatever you want to call it for this game, reuses assets aggressively. Most, if not all, Atlus games do this, but they straight up make you fight the exact same bosses like all in a row. And this is why in my Metaphor ReFantazio review, I gave that game a lot of shit for the exact same reasons. The gameplay itself is good despite the end game being kinda eh. Similarly to P5X, I wasn't expecting much going into it, but once I started playing, I was like, damn, this is pretty fucking fun, dude. The tactics approach was very fun, and I felt like every character had a purpose. Some characters were much better than others. I mean, Yusuke was way above everyone else if you ask me, but the game encouraged you to experiment with different party compositions, which was a really fun experience. The game was on the shorter side, but I was alright with this. Not every game needs to have a massive monolith of game time, and I appreciated the game for not overstaying its welcome. Regarding the story, I mean y'all, I cannot gas it up enough. This game focuses mostly on the new characters Toshiro and Erina rather than the Phantom Thieves themselves, which I liked actually. It's pretty funny because what I gave Persona 1 some flack for, I gave this game praise for. It's mainly because we have so many other ways to explore the Persona 5 cast and who they are, you know what I mean? So we didn't need another game dedicated to that. I enjoyed having the Phantom Thieves just be themselves and who they are and help other people who needed it while getting out of yet another shitty situation they ended up in. That was a pretty long sentence, but I hope you got what I was trying to say. For as many spin-offs Persona 5 has, it's pretty impressive they managed to make all of them good. Besides Persona 5 Dancing, but like I said, I don't hate that game. It's like Atlus is milking it, but the milk tastes good as fuck. I'm slurping that shit down my throat, and that sounds really bad in...
Bro, what did you just say? I just said...
Fuck, I'm slurping that shit down my throat.
That's still gay. No, you're gay. He's gay.
Anyway, this game is fire. Play it if you haven't. One of the best spin-offs in the series. S tier is unsurprisingly going to be the largest tier of the video, since I do love most of the games, believe it or not. And the first game of S tier is going to be short and sweet to talk about. Persona 4 Arena is very similar to Ultimax, but it has my favorite spin-off story in the series. So it has my favorite spin-off story with my favorite gameplay as well. Need I say more? Regardless of whether I need to, I'm gonna say it anyways because this is a yap session video anyways. The reason I like the original Arena story mode more than Ultimax's is because I just do not like Sho Minazuki as an antagonist. Every time I heard those stupid ass puns, it pissed me the fuck off. Like that quote where he's like, "Sordom? More like boredom." Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. You are so cringe. I'm being hyperbolic, but him being the main antagonist of Ultimax made it so lame. and the lore behind them just isn't that interesting. There's a reason it's my least favorite story in Persona, period. Vanilla Arena, on the other hand, introduced Labris and her whole backstory and character, which is my favorite spin-off character in the series. She is very well written and interesting, and the fact the game revolved around her made it entertaining as a result. Her being the same model of anti-shadow weapon as Aegis, the way she got involved with the P3 and P4 cast, all great. Not to mention, this game was the first one to truly bring the P3 and P4 cast together in a way that mattered. In the Q games and whatnot, since it's a dream or whatever that everyone forgets, it kinda just makes the whole experience irrelevant to the continuity. But the arena games aren't like that. The interactions between the cast are important and give valid context into these characters we love and what goes through their heads. The story is just goated and touches on what the Persona 3 and 4 casts were up to after their respective games, which is why I love it so much. Ultimax did this to an extent, but man, that story was not good. I'm sorry. It's just not, man. I can't lie. I just don't like it, but the game is still good. You know what I'm saying? Please don't hate me for it. That's all I want to say about Arena. So now we break into the top 5 of this list. And ironically, starting things off is Persona 5. Not Persona 5 Royal, just Persona 5. Even without the royal content of Maruki and Kasumi, I still love this game so much. I'll be the first to admit this game is far from perfect, but the things this game does well outweigh the things it does badly by a long shot for me. Persona 5 in general still has my favorite art direction of the series, even more than the newly released Persona 3 Reload. Something about the presentation of this game is so perfect to me. The UI, the skills, and especially the atmosphere. People give praise to all the Persona games in terms of atmosphere. Yet ironically, I feel like Persona 5's atmosphere isn't talked about that much despite being the biggest game in the franchise, but maybe I'm just not seeing it. The way the game uses lighting and everything is so aesthetically pleasing to me, and I love the setting of Shibuya in comparison to the other games that have smaller-ish places as their setting. I say this as a Persona 4 fanboy, by the way. I don't mean this in ill intent. Everything about this game just feels very polished, and then it has a great story and cast to boot. This game has my least favorite cast out of the modern games, but considering I love all of them, that really isn't saying much. It doesn't mean anything. Ryuji is my GOAT, by the way. I can relate to his struggles a lot as someone who also has pretty fucked up knees and likes to run. Even characters like Haru that get shafted on development I love so much. I think Persona 5 is probably my favorite game to casually play when I'm feeling bored or whatever. I also think this game has the strongest lineup of confidants or social links we've seen yet. Persona 3 and 4 have at least one or more social links I do not like at all, but in Persona 5 there's only ones I think are kinda whatever. The confidants range from average or slightly boring to some of the best in the series, and I think that's amazing. Yoshida, Iwai, Yusuke, Sojiro, Takumi, Hifumi, I mean the list goes on and on. As far as the story goes, there's only a few gripes I have. Like, I do not like Morgana at all, that's just how it is. And some of the palaces were just okay. But even with these gripes, this is a classic game. And there's a reason it's one of the biggest games of our generation. The themes are good as hell, music is good as hell, story is good as hell, characters are good as hell. I could go on, but I don't want to be here all day. Persona 5 is goated, simple as. Another goated game that the vast majority of Persona fans haven't been able to play is Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. And what a shame, because this game is absolutely fucking amazing. This is by far my favorite story in all of Persona, and the gameplay had a massive glow up from Innocent Sin. Also, to be clear, I'm talking about the PSP version of Innocent Sin with the fan translation, not the PlayStation 1 version, even though I do own it. This game did everything almost 100% flawlessly, and if the gameplay was just a little bit better, I'd be comfortable putting it as #1 on my list. It's that good. It has probably my favorite cast, my favorite story like I said, some of my favorite music, and a really good setting to boot. The way it touches on the idea of rumors and the general theme of sin was so interesting, and from start to finish I was totally invested in the narrative. I can't say much about it due to spoilers, but please Alice, y'all gotta make this game available so more people can experience it. The game still has some issues from Innocent Sin, like the negotiation and fusion system, but other than that, it's been improved a lot. The game isn't so easy you can beat it with default personas anymore, so that's good. The rumor system is better, the combat is more fast paced, And really, that's all this game needed. I would have liked for the random encounter rate to be lowered, but it isn't the biggest deal considering the fights go by faster. The PSP version also added a Tatsuya scenario where you play from his point of view during the events of the story, and considering Maya is the protagonist of this game, this was a very welcome addition. It's one of my favorite things ever added into a Persona game, and it added to my enjoyment of the story greatly. Eternal Punishment is a fucking stellar game, and again, I hope Atlus gives it some more love one day. We can only hope. Ironically, again at the number 3 spot is Persona 3 Reload. Yup, I think Reload improved upon Fest that much, fight me on it if you want to. Reload retains everything Fest did well with the characters, story, music, and all that, but fixed the gameplay and just made everything better. The only thing I would debate being better in Fest is the music, but other than that, I prefer Reload in every single metric. It's just more fun to play, I don't know what more to say. It gave the main antagonist of the game more of a presence, the male party members now have something even better than social links now in the linked episodes, and you can now control your party members, thank God. That's all it took for me to put Persona 3 at number 3 on my list. It literally just took Persona 3 Fest and made it better to me. That's all I feel like I need to say. Number 2 on the list is Persona 5 Royal, and similarly to Persona 3 Reload, this game just did what Persona 5 was doing but added a ton of stuff I loved about it. I adore Maruki and Kasumi's characters, they added some quality of life stuff and added some stuff to all the confidants, so I don't need to say much more. And finally, my favorite game in the Persona series, Persona 4 Golden. If you're wondering where Persona 4 Vanilla is, I haven't played it. I'm not including the vanilla ones, that's just redundant. Even though I included Persona 5 Vanilla, but just ignore that, okay? Let's not overcomplicate things, y'all. Persona 4 Golden is weird for me because, truth be told, when I think about this game's story, I find myself thinking, man, this is really poorly written. Yet despite that, I still enjoy it and just enjoy playing this game in general so much. The cast is really fun, the gameplay is simple yet enjoyable, the social links are good, everything but the story for the most part is good to me. But even then, the story is good to me sometimes, which is why it's so weird. For most of the game, I'm just meh or even just outright thinking the game is just ass. But at a certain point, it clicks. It's like that Danny DeVito gif where he just stares down the screen crying. And then I remember why I love this game so much. It embodies what I think Persona does best, which again is that theme of being your true self, or in this game's case, pursuing your true self. Then you've got that small town setting, and not to contradict myself on what I said about Persona 5 setting, but man, Inaba did wonders for this game. Since the game takes place in a small town, it emphasizes that feeling of having fuck all to do, and trust me, I know that feeling well. I live in the middle of nowhere, which forces you to find something to do. And in the case of the investigation team, there's something with solving a murder case and becoming closer to one another. It's the sort of thing that wouldn't be as interesting in a setting like Shibuya. Having a murderer on the loose in a small town with supernatural elements behind it makes it feel truly distinct, which is why I love it so much. I'd be the first to tell you, I think this game's writing is all over the damn place in terms of quality. Like, let's not pretend the Void Quest section was an ass. But again, even with these issues in mind, I just can't help but love this game to death. It felt so cozy and nostalgic, which is a feeling I enjoy a lot. When I think about this game from a quote-unquote objective standpoint, and I put it in quotes because it's hard to be objective with an obviously subjective media, I feel like it should be lower on my list. Maybe still an S tier, but lower, but I can never bring myself to do it. No matter how flawed this game is, I just love it too much, which is why I feel comfortable calling it my favorite Persona game of all time. It led me to meeting some of my best friends after all, so that definitely plays a part in it for me. But either way, I love Persona 4 Golden and I always will. Man, that kind of got sentimental there near the end, huh? I guess that goes to show how good the series is when we can have such a good discussion regarding the games and the 30-year history they have. My list might be concluded, but the party don't gotta end yet, homie. We got the comment section. So I ask you, dear viewer, what is your favorite Persona game of all time? What would your tier list look like? Do you like my tier list or not? I'd love to hear what you all think, and I'd also love it if you could drop a like and a subscribe. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subs and it would help my channel a lot. I'll even give you a free cookie on your way out. Here you go, homie. It's been your boy Yandere Gogeta. Don't forget to comment about your own feelings on Persona, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, everybody, and have a great day.